Imagine a man who spent his entire life attacking Islam, debating Muslims, disproving the Quran, and warning thousands of people to stay away from Islam, only to end up as the very person who brought lakhs of people into Islam. This is the story of a monk whose tongue once fought Islam, but later cried, La ilaha illallah, until the heavens trembled. What changed him? What miracle forced him to bow? Listen closely, because this might be the most heart-shaking conversion story you ever hear. The monk who fought Islam, then became its greatest scholar. There was once a monk named Brother Elias, a man who lived in a mountain monastery carved in an ancient stone, surrounded by silence, candles, and old wooden doors that creaked like memories. A man respected by thousands for his sharp tongue, his fiery speeches, and his ability to argue against Islam with such conviction that people believed no one could ever defeat him in debate. For he had dedicated decades to studying religions not to find truth, but to attack Islam, and his voice echoed through churches, towns, and gatherings where he would stand tall in his brown robe, clutching a cross and saying, Islam is not the path, stay away from it. And everyone believed him because people believe those who speak the loudest. But deep inside his heart, there were cracks that no one saw, cracks filled with doubts he tried to hide even from himself, questions that haunted him like shadows creeping behind a candle flame. Questions such as, why does the Quran challenge people endlessly? Why does it describe my thoughts before I even finish thinking them? Why do Muslims speak of God with a certainty that shakes mountains? But he ignored those questions, burying them under anger and pride because he feared losing everything he had built. Until one night, a quiet night, when the wind outside the monastery howled like a beast and the moon hung low like an eye watching over him, Elias felt a restlessness he could not shake, and he walked into the library, lit a single candle, and picked up a Quran that someone had gifted him years ago. A Quran he kept only so he could mock it, but as he touched it, his hands trembled. And he whispered to himself, I will read only one verse, only one. But one verse became two, and two became 10. And soon his candle burned low while his heart burned high, because every verse felt like a hammer striking the walls he had built his entire life. Every ayah like a light piercing the darkness he had been living in, and he found himself unable to close the book, unable to breathe normally. For something inside him shook like a tree in a storm, especially when he reached Surah Maryam and read about ISS speaking from the cradle, about Maryam being chosen, about the truth of prophethood, and he whispered into the cold air, This is not written by a man. And tears he had never shed in his adult life began to fall silently on the pages, tears that washed away years of arrogance. And there in the candlelight, he felt something breaking, something melting, something awakening. And he spent the entire night reading, trembling, whispering, Ya Allah, is this truly your word? Have I been wrong all my life? But dawn came before he found the courage to answer his own question. And for days he walked like a silent ghost through the monastery, unable to pray, eat, or preach, for every time he tried to speak against Islam again, his voice cracked like a broken vessel, and the Quran's words echoed in his mind. And the truth has come, and falsehood has vanished. And he finally understood that the truth had come to him, whether he wanted it or not. Until one morning, a morning scented with fresh rain, he walked out of the monastery, trembling, clutching the Quran to his chest. And he walked miles to the nearest Muslim community, knocked on their door, and when they opened, they were shocked to see the famous monk who debated Islam, now standing like a humbled servant. And he said with a broken voice, Please, teach me how to say the shaahadah. And the imam, stunned into tears, guided him gently. And when he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, the earth beneath him felt like it shifted, the sky above him felt like it expanded, and Elias, now Ali, fell to the ground in sujud, crying so hard that the masjid walls echoed with his sobs, and he kept repeating, How could I have been so blind? Ya Allah, thank you for not letting me die on falsehood. And from that moment, he changed completely. He abandoned the monastery, abandoned the robes, abandoned the life of pride and applause, and replaced it with humility, knowledge, and servitude. and he washed dishes in the masjid, swept floors, and sat for hours learning Quran and Hadith from scholars younger than him with the humility of a child learning to walk. And what astonished everyone was how fast he transformed, for he memorized chapters of Quran with the passion of a man who had been thirsty his whole life and finally found water. And soon he began giving small speeches, not as a monk, but as a Muslim, speaking softly, trembling, telling people, "I used to hate Islam because I never knew it." And his words touched hearts because they were honest, because they came from a man who had walked through fire and come out reborn, and slowly his story spread across villages, towns, cities, and eventually across countries, and thousands came to listen to him. And every time he spoke, people cried, because he told them about the night he read the Quran and felt Allah speaking to him. And he told them how ignorance made him arrogant, and how the Quran broke him, healed him, and rebuilt him. And his story became so powerful that even priests and monks began coming secretly to listen, and many accepted Islam through him. And Ali dedicated every breath to dawah, traveling by foot, train, and old buses, visiting remote areas, jungles, deserts, and towns no one had heard of, preaching Islam with such sincerity that lakhs of people accepted Islam through him. People who said, if the man who fought Islam the most became Muslim, then Islam must be the truth. And Ali never took credit, always saying, it was Allah who guided me, and Allah who guides others. I am only a witness, and near the end of his life, when he was old, fragile, with white hair like moonlight and hands that shook with exhaustion, a student asked him, what made you accept Islam? A miracle? A dream? And he smiled gently and said, no, my son, truth itself is the miracle. And those were his last public words before he passed away in sajda during far, his forehead touching the ground he once refused to bow upon. And the world cried for a man who started as an enemy of Islam, but died as a soldier of Allah, a man whose journey teaches us that no one is too far gone, no one is too lost, no one is beyond the mercy of Allah, because guidance comes to the heart that seeks truth even in darkness. And perhaps that is why millions still share his story today, whispering. He went from preaching against Islam to bringing lakhs into Islam. And his legacy continues like ripples spreading across oceans, proving that Allah guides whom he wills, and no heart is impossible for him to turn. If this story touched your heart, imagine how many more hearts we can awaken together. Support the mission of spreading authentic, emotional Islamic stories that remind the world of Allah's mercy. Like, share, and subscribe to Deen in Minute. And remember, every share of a story that guides someone becomes your sadaqah jariyah. Don't stop the care here, let it spread. Click subscribe, and let's change lives together, inshallah.